Good evening, and welcome to the Watchmen's Report. I'm Cody Higley, and tonight we're joined by Jason Foreman and Robert Landon. And it's just going to be a informal show, a little pop-up broadcast here, talk about some national news topics, uh, some things going on in the state, and a few local items here. So we hope you enjoy the broadcast tonight. And I want to wish everybody a happy new year on this New Year's Eve. And hopefully, you all had a Merry Christmas out there. Robert, did you have a good Christmas?
Oh yeah. We took the family down to Disney. It was their first time, and the kids just absolutely loved it. Crowds were horrendous, though. I do not recommend going at this time of year if you're not a crowd person.
Oh,
All the
wow. Yeah,
snowbirds are
no,
down there. Yeah. We're all
I
down
Yeah,
there
would.
right now.
I would not enjoy that at all. I try to avoid crowds, avoid people as much as I can. I'll only go to Columbus like if I absolutely have to.
yeah.
Uh, Not for me, not for me. Jason, how was your Christmas, man?
Oh, it was great. Nobody was in the hospital, so we didn't have to deal with any of that craziness. And everything was good. I mean, the little one got what he wanted for Christmas, and everybody's happy and healthy. So I'm happy.
That's all you can ask for. Any big plans for New Year's?
Just hanging out with you guys. We're gonna have the New Year's broadcast tomorrow. I know we got at least two guests coming on. We got Mr. Ralph Smith and Pam Larkin, who are two of the most popular stats that we have. Twyla's up there with those guys too, but I know she's been, dealing with the passing of her father and the holidays, and she's been kind of quiet lately, but she's still in the game. She's got a lot going on.
Yeah, it should be a really good show tomorrow night. Make sure you tune in. Are we starting at 7:30? Or are we going to go later? What are we
We'll
doing?
probably start at 7:30. Seems to be the time.
Yeah, so make sure you check out the broadcast tomorrow night. Should be a good one. So, what do you guys want to talk about here? There's so much going on in national politics. Um, I I don't know. I mean, what are your what are your guys' take? What are your sentiments on where the country is right now and where it is headed in 2026? I mean, there's a that could go a lot of ways, but do you guys feel optimistic? Are things getting better? I mean, it's hard to judge when you listen to the mainstream media who utilizes these polling companies that are very questionable on
Yeah.
their own. So it comes down to how do you, a regular person living in this country, feel about where the country is headed? I mean, Robert, are you feeling optimistic? Are you pessimistic? What's going on in the land and world?
Well, I'm personally optimistic. I really think it comes down to like what's your worldview, because we're a very polarized country right now, unfortunately. And so you either think that the president's doing a good job or you think the president's doing a horrible job. I mean, it's really not a lot of in between in my experience and conversations I have with people. Um, I'm personally optimistic because I think we have a president who is he's strong on national defense. He's strong on immigration. He's strong on he really wants to bring taxes down. I don't know if you saw that about how they're saying that we're going to get higher tax refunds this tax season. So I think that there's a lot of good momentum we have going on. Obviously, things are far from perfect. They will always be far from perfect. I'm really interested in talking about this Venezuela situation because that has huge ramifications. I don't know if people follow that enough, but that has huge ramifications. Obviously, you have the whole Ukraine situation, but I think President Trump is really trying to negotiate a peace settlement between Russia and Ukraine. The fact that he has changed his tune. I mean, if you guys remember a few months ago when, I mean, he kind of humiliated President Zelensky in the Oval Office. I mean, it was like this whole
That was
big,
awesome, by the way.
yeah. I mean, it was just like him
I
and
hate
I think it was JD Vance was in office. So that was a big show, right? I mean, all the media pundits were talking about that. But now he's bringing him in. He's like patting him on the back, like he's being very friendly with Zelensky, and we see this with Trump. This is kind of Trump's mo, right? I mean, he'll punch you before he pats you on the back, and so there's a lot of those geopolitical things internationally that we got to keep watching. But as far as domestically, I mean, how much more can you expect when we have trillions of dollars of investments expected to pour in? We have a pro-family president. We have a family who is pro-faith. I like a lot of those things. What do you guys think?
I
Jay,
mean,
I'll let you.
I'm interested in the Venezuela thing too. I know that were kind of stalking the situation with Iran as we were, getting into the stats a little bit deeper. I think you were involved in that, Mr. Landon. It was before Cody came on, but we saw a statistical trend across the nation of people who thought that, we were going to strike Iran, in the somewhat immediate future, and it ended up playing out to be just that way. And now we've got a naval armada of sorts surrounding them, and it's starting to look like they might actually start pounding them hard on inland. Now, do I agree with it? Everybody that knows anything about Marion Watch knows how I feel about the outside drug influencers, China, Mexico, any of those actors that are bringing in precursors and whatnot. And under normal circumstances, I would say, yeah, bomb them. But something tells me that there's more politics involved in this time. And I don't know. You guys are more of the experts on the political spectrum in the national and state arenas. So I'd welcome your input on that. But to me, somebody who's not real political, I look at it and I think, hey, man, maybe this is more of a political thing than because as far as I knew, most of the fentanyl and the precursors for meth and fentanyl and all that stuff were coming in from Mexico, China, things like that. Some remnants left in the Middle East that are still coming in. We have several articles on that on MarionWatch.com. What do you guys think about that?
Well, okay. With Trump, I'm going to give my full takeaway opinion here. Um, I was one of the earliest supporters of Trump. Actually, I attended one of his very first rallies and got the privilege of standing on the stage behind him, directly behind him, back in 2015, December 2015. And, you know, there was a lot of energy with that campaign in particular. I think because of the unique approach, the direct approach, not censoring what you say, people really appreciated that. They also, the populist message, the whole America first and make America great again messaging really resonated with people. And I
Right.
think that a lot of your blue collar, working class individuals who have been left behind for many, many years by both parties, Democrats and Republicans, um, really thought that it was going to be something different. In that first administration, Trump made the mistake of immediately upon taking office, it went from campaign Trump saying that Obama and the Democrats have done XYZ, these establishment Republicans have done XYZ, and it's really bad. Well, then on like pretty much day one, it was like, hey, the economy is the greatest in the world, almost immediately switching the tone and the narrative. And I think that was a mistake. I think that he should have said, no, this is going to be a long, drawn out thing. We've basically printed trillions and trillions of dollars, and we've used the uh, Federal Reserve to purchase with this printed money that they print, use them to buy our debt, therefore suppressing interest rates and causing eventually, I mean, it takes a while, causing all this ridiculous inflation, which is what we've been going through here over the past 5 years. Uh, Really, the worst period of inflation in this country's history. And Trump could have learned a lesson from his first administration by maintaining that from the beginning and saying, look, the situation is dire. It's a bad situation. And it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And we're all going to have to make sacrifices in order to forge a better future. And we're going to have to cut spending substantially. And, that's not really the messaging that he went with. He did some good things as far as bringing Doge in. How much did Doge actually accomplish? Not a whole lot, but that was, if you listen to Elon Musk, I mean, he said, there's not much that you can do. I'm one man. I may be the world's wealthiest man, but you have this completely rotten to the core system. So, how much can you expect him to accomplish when you have all these institutions of power, this entrenched power between the financial entrenched interests, intelligence, you name it. And I think he just kind of said, "There's really no fixing the system realistically in the short term." So I think that much more should have been done to coalesce support around those efforts earlier in the year, in the middle part of the year, maintain it, because there is a substantial amount of fraud. I mean, you look at the fraud that they're unveiling here with the Somalian communities in Minnesota and also in our own state of Ohio. It's pervasive. The fraud that exists within all your welfare systems, within SNAP. SNAP was kind of a topic of um, discussion here within the past month. Just look at the numbers that the Biden administration had expanded SNAP enrollment, unprecedented increases. So, but what Trump ended up doing is pushing for the big beautiful bill, which that's fine. I mean, there's a lot of good things in there. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't, but any any amount of increased spending should be viewed negatively. There has to be substantial cuts to federal spending,
Mm-hmm.
state spending, and the local spending across the board. All levels of government
Yeah.
have to get their fiscal houses in order. They've been living off of fiat, cheap currency because we had basically from 2008 until only a couple of years ago, essentially a 0% federal funds rate, where they were suppressing through quantitative easing, they were suppressing those rates on loans, and they were keeping that federal funds rate super low, which is the rate that Federal Reserve banking institutions or participating institutions lend money to each other. That's not normal. That's what they call Keynesian economics. It's a bullshit theory. Um, it's not sustainable. And that's what our country did for the better part of 15, 16 years. And the debt and spending is, to me, the biggest existential threat that this country faces. We're now, what, $38 trillion, something like that, in national debt. That's not including all these unfunded liabilities. Um, it's a serious, serious, serious problem. And in my opinion, that's what's going on with the geopolitical situation, especially in a country like Venezuela, the largest
Yeah.
producer of oil. So, is it really about fentanyl? Is it really about drug trafficking coming from South America? I mean, that's the narrative, but we have a lot going on with the uh, tenuous nature of the dollar as the global reserve currency.
Mhm.
And what people don't realize is that the global reserve currency, the dollar has that. And historically, there's been one nation that has had that benefit. That, and what that is, folks, is that when you are the global reserve currency, all these other countries will trade in commodities and different products using your currency. So the number one item of trade or commodity of trade is oil. So if you are, let's say, Zimbabwe in Africa, and you want to purchase 1 million barrels of oil from Saudi Arabia, you're going to purchase that oil using US dollars. You're not going to be using Zimbabwe, whatever the hell they use. I think they use a pound, I think, because they were, I think, I'm not sure. But anyway, all these countries in the world therefore have to invest in US dollars in order to trade on these global markets in these particular commodities and stuff. So that's a huge benefit to the dollar because you have all these different people, all these different nations that are purchasing not only your currency, but they're also purchasing your debt as a hedge in their investments in your currency. Debt is US Treasury bonds, which is basically an IOU that's issued by the federal government where they say, okay, you give us $1 million today, and in 10 years, we'll give you $1.1 million. It's an IOU,
Mhm.
basically fund spending in the now, where the government will pay you back with interest in the future. So we've been running this game since we've had the global reserve currency status. We got it in 1944. The prior holder of the global reserve currency status was the British pound. We saw what happened to Britain in World War II. It was pretty well destroyed financially. Their empire crumbled. So these things don't last forever. And we've been operating with fiat currency, meaning it's not backed by precious metals, it's not backed by gold or silver or anything of tangible value that it can be pegged to. So we've been operating on fiat currency since 1970 when President Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. So I don't know. And that's the whole thing with Ukraine. Ukraine has a few other geopolitical like things going on with it, but in the end, it's pressuring Russia. In Russia, the alternative to the US system backed by the dollar is what's called the BRICS system. So it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, in South America. And it's actually BRICS has expanded to much of the global south here in the last couple of years. So as these nations who actually produce things, we are a consumer nation. Western Europe, for the most part, is a consumer nation or group of nations. They they actually are harmed by the dollar system. So they're seeking an alternative. And Russia being one of the world's largest producers of commodities, they, above probably anybody else, are more harmed by it. So that's what the antagonism, and it was antagonism. It was not, if you look into the history of that particular conflict with the Maidan revolution that occurred in 2014, and everything since then, it has the fingerprints all over it of Victoria Nuland, who worked for the U.S. State Department, and it was basically our government overthrowing the government of Ukraine and installing um, one that was sympathetic to it and to the European Union. And then you fast forward to today, we have basically them backing a dictator in Volodymyr Zelensky, who refuses to allow free and open elections, is basically sending everybody that they can pull off the streets into the meat grinder. It's a horrible situation. It's the death of a storied nation. And I was hopeful, as a Trump supporter, I was hopeful that he would just go in there and say, we are no longer going to be supplying weapons or money to Ukraine. You guys can figure it out. If the European Union wants to step in and up its support, then go right ahead. But this is an America first agenda. This is an America first foreign policy. And that's what I would have liked to have seen. But unfortunately, that's not what we're getting. We're getting these geopolitical conflicts that are largely, I think, you know, a part of the battle between the dollar retaining global hegemony versus some alternative system. So, what are your thoughts on that, Lando?
Well, I think, and I don't know if you guys seen, I think it was Fox News. I can't really remember, but there was like an audio clip that was played that it was President Trump talking about how they hit a plant inside Venezuela. And it was a major boating operation plant. So I think their goal was to tackle the main source of those drug boats coming out of Venezuela. That right there is a major escalation. And that, I mean, let's call it what it is. This is a conflict. It's a more static conflict, but it's a conflict. And the fact that we had to reactivate a military base in Puerto Rico that was dormant for years, and with the huge surge of forces in the area, the Nimitz class carrier, the largest, or was it the Gerald Ford? I can't remember. It's the largest carrier group that we have. And to put them right there in Venezuela, that tells me that this isn't, I know people think it's about oil, and it very well could be, but knowing President Trump and knowing America's interests with Venezuela trying to be aligned with Russia and with China, and both of those countries were trying to get a bigger foothold in there. I believe Russia supplied Venezuela with some air defense missiles. And we have always had the Monroe Doctrine, where the Western Hemisphere belongs to the United States. And that's always been our doctrine. And I think Trump is trying to revive that because we've gotten so distracted by, the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, defending our ally Israel, everything that's happening in the Indo-Pacific region with China, Taiwan. That's another thing we're probably gonna have to talk about tonight if we're, expanding on national global topics. But because this one is like right back in our backyard, it has much more meaning and much more impact. And so to be able to strike somebody or strike a country like that, and it was just like nonchalant. Like normally, Trump, like with this whole Iran thing. Remember when we bombed Iran with Israel? That was a major escalation, and it was big news. But they haven't really like paraded this around in the media right now. So that's kind of odd too. Like, why is this kind of more hush hush right now? And I think they're waiting to see if Maduro is going to step down, because that's what's really the end game
He
is. I mean,
offered to. That's the thing. He pretty much said, like, I'll give you what you want. And then it was like, no, we're not interested.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So I don't know. I'm 100% against war, or what they call war, which is basically executive military action or undeclared war. If the nation is truly at threat, that's one thing. But so much of our history, we've seen just kind of dubious uh, reasoning when it comes to war. And I don't know. I mean,
Well, you're
alone,
the legal guy, right? I mean, for the most part, you have better experience on that than we do. What do you think about Trump's authority to strike these boats? I mean, that's been the biggest hot button issue between the left and the right now, and even with some Republicans, he is getting a little bit of heat from some Republicans, more the moderate base. Um, does he have authority to do that? That's the question.
I mean, it may end up, depending on what happens in the midterms and in Congress, he could end up facing impeachment. I think somebody filed impeachment articles here just
Yeah.
recently against him. Not to say that anything's going to happen right now, but that doesn't mean that if they don't focus, again, it's America first. And my alteration to that slogan would be America only. I don't give a shit. Do what is best for this country and its people.
Hmm.
I don't want money going to Israel. I don't want weapons going to Ukraine, you know, unless we're getting something bigger in return, other
Right.
than like, oh, you have a staunch ally in the Middle East, or you have, somebody on Russia's doorstep that's helping you, whatever. No, 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 no. America first, America only. Focus on the domestic situation here. We have what, 1 in 5, I think it's even more than that now, people in this country that we know of, are foreign born. Biden let in, they admit 10 to 12 million came additional illegal aliens came in during his 4-year term in office. So anytime that the government tells you a figure, you've got to increase it by probably 10, 20, 30%. That's the same thing with the number of illegal aliens that existed during the Obama administration or Bush W or any of them. It was always 11 to 12 million. For like 30 years, that's the figure that they always use.
Hmm.
No, there's a hell of a lot. There's
Yeah.
probably 30, 40, 50 million illegals in this country realistically. And you can have these ICE campaigns going around and, you know, uh, really just doing their job. I mean, they're just executing the law, and it's a drop in the bucket. The
Hey, and
best that you can hope for
they're
is
hiring
that
if you need a job.
yeah, I mean, I would I would totally go. I'd probably be frustrated. I'd be like, let's round up all
Yeah.
of them, get them out. You know, um, but that's really the situation. So you can say like, oh, we've had 500,000. I
Yeah.
don't know what the updated figures are. It's probably right around that 400, 500,000 for a year. It's not enough. That's not enough just for what Biden allowed to come in under his sleep induced
Hmm.
term in office. So, you know, and that does greatly impact the economic situation in this country. Not only people want to say, oh, they don't get the welfare and all that stuff. Bullshit. They do. And if nothing
Hmm.
else, they're putting strains on our hospital system, our healthcare system, because they don't turn people away. If you're
Hmm.
indigent and you go into the emergency room and you say, "Oh, okay, I don't understand you, okay," you're going to get help, and then you're not going to have to pay the bill.
Yeah.
Um, Work under the table, take jobs away that suppresses wages. There's so many economic impacts. Same thing with housing costs and that sort of thing. I mean, just think if you had uh, 10, 20, 30 million fewer people in this country, what's that going to do to housing prices? It's going to see result in a large decrease, a large decline. So then housing is going to become much more affordable. So, um, but those are the issues that they need to focus on. It's the domestic policy that needs to be focused on, making doing what they can from a policy standpoint to make living expenses
Yeah.
more affordable, improving the situation here at home. Because what's going to happen is people don't realize, and I do, I'm not blaming all this inflation on Trump, the big beautiful bill and that sort of thing, and a lack of substantive cuts. That's ill-advised. It's not good. You're continuing down the road to hell, but the road to hell was paved long before Trump.
Oh yeah,
All this inflation
yeah,
was, created. And you can look, if people doubt and they want to say, "Oh no, this just started." I know a certain left-wing podcaster in Marion that'll he never said a word during the Biden administration about inflation. Not one word. But sure as hell, as soon as Trump gets in there, oh, I was looking in the store and I see these and people are complaining about that. No, look at the Federal Reserve charts. Look at the CPI and how much money has been created. We had unprecedented from 2020 to 2024. Okay, so that's what people need to understand is
yeah,
that was really really bad. We're talking in a lot of different commodities and stuff 20, 30, 40% increases in that period of time.
right.
So that
I mean, I think
doesn't
a lot of people have lost the art of being able to research themselves, really. I mean, they're getting all their
can't think
news
themselves.
from,
You think they can't
right.
research, they can't think.
It's quite sad. And quite frankly, as far as with the Venezuelan thing and all the crazy things that have been going on militarily, I'm hesitant with the intelligence. I want to see some of these intelligence reports that they're constantly citing. We've seen intelligence failures in the past, serious admitted intelligence failures. I mean, Iraq, we were just talking about Iraq. That's one of them. There's many through history, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, define what's the real reason. If it is fentanyl, you know, these Mexican drug cartels. You want to go into northwest Mexican deserts and stuff where they're trafficking drugs and people over the border, and you want to bomb them. I think that there's more justification for that than some boats that are they really leaving Venezuela's coast and getting into Florida or wherever?
Well, I would say
I don't.
this. I think I'm not entirely sold one way or the other on whether he has the authority to, I mean, kill people. One, to stop this. Uh, but I will say I definitely agree we should stop it. It might not require killing people, but stopping them, detaining them, whatever, whether there's a due process or not with foreigners, I'm not fully sure, but I definitely think
I'd
that
say no, and I
I
think our founders would say that no, they do not have due process.
well, and but the fact that like they're bringing drugs to our country, Jay and I, we've been passionate about this going back to 2016. I've had family killed over it. I mean, almost everybody we all know somebody that's either been addicted, overdosed, died, whatever. Like it's just been so impactful to our communities that it has to be stopped. I mean, even Reagan, we can argue that too, the war on drugs in the 80s, and just say no campaign, if y'all remember that. It was a big deal back then. And so I think Trump is really trying to up the ante, so to speak, with it. Maybe his methods, we can debate the methods, but I think like the desired outcome should be, hey, let's stop the flow of drugs as much as possible into our country, because it is impacting our families and our community. That's just my take.
Yeah, I mean, again, does that require a potential invasion or troops on the
Right.
ground? Does it require regime change?
Right.
You're telling me with all the radar systems and defense weaponry and everything that we don't know when a fish takes a shit in the Caribbean. You
Mhm.
really don't think that we can like stop the inflow of vessels into our waters? Yeah, we can, and we can do that from a distance. With
Mhm.
all these advancements in drone technology, that's what I'm saying. Like, just be honest with it. If it's about the geopolitical situation with BRICS challenging the dollar and the dollar's hegemony and stuff, and we can't have Venezuela teaming up with those BRICS nations because of
Mhm.
their uh, uh, large production of oil. Okay, then be honest with it. You know,
Yeah.
I honestly think that if you said, "Hey, we're going to go conquer Venezuela, and then we're going to nationalize the oil there, and everybody's going to get a huge dividend. We're going to give payments to the American people, a conqueror's dividend." People would probably be okay with that. You know, be honest about it. I personally would prefer something like that than saying, "Hey, we're going to go down here and Exxon and Texaco and all these oil companies are going to benefit, but you guys are going to get the shaft like you
Yeah.
always do." You know, that's
Well,
all I'm saying.
some of those things, like the most recent things, were the hijacking of the vessels, the oil tankers, wherever you want to call them, and those are shadow fleets of, I believe, what, Russia and Iran is what they were saying. That I can get behind because they're operating illegally. That's against international law. And then they're also trying to pump up their allies, Venezuela, right in our backyard. I mean, it is kind of consistent with what we've done historically. Again, right or wrong, I'm just kind of speaking what's, from a historical perspective, that we've done this in Panama. What was that, in the 80s, late 80s? The failed Cuban crisis under JFK, the Bay of Pigs. We tried to stop the Russians in Cuba. So it is. I mean, this is like across decades of presidents, both Republican and Democratic presidents. So this is consistent with what we have done as a country. But I agree. I think our methods, we have to be, if you're going to do something like this, you have to be efficient and precise. And you've heard them talk about that, like when they go to do a missile strike in the Middle East, they'll say, "Oh, well, this was a precision strike. We didn't take out civilians." Well, then you got to do that here with Venezuela as well.
How is that America first? How does that help with the American people? That's
Yeah.
that's what's going to matter. I'm telling you, between now, I'm not like the mainstream media pundits that are saying, the election of Mamdani in New York City was that big of a surprise, or any of those elections that were held that same night in November. They were in blue leftist states, uh, or areas that have seen huge demographic changes. So to say Virginia is solidly blue. I mean, it's basically a southern state that has been conquered by Northerners, foreigners, and the federal government employees. So you know, that's just how it is. So and then the Republicans ran a weak candidate for governor, so they lost. Um, I'm not I'm not saying that you're going to see this huge blue wave come in the midterms, but it's a possibility. You have to focus on domestic policy, and you can't be sidetracked by these foreign endeavors that really have questionable benefit to the United States. Again, like, what do we get for? You could say, "Oh well, Iran, they were going to produce weapons of mass destruction," all this shit. Well, they said the same damn thing about Iraq, and look at that quagmire that we were drug into.
Mhm.
Cost us trillions of dollars of much needed wealth, and resulted in the deaths of thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands or millions of Iraqis. You know, um, Israel, if they're worried about Iran, have at it, Israel. Go ahead and do whatever the hell you want to do, and we won't sanction you in the United Nations or anything like that. But don't ask us for anything. Don't ask us for money. Don't ask us for weapons. You do you, and we will do us. It's time to focus on the American people here at home. We have been run over a barrel for generations, and it's time that that shit ends, because if you don't do it the right way, which is the populist conservative way, which is the America first, America only way, the alternative to that is going to be leftist socialism, communism. That's what you're going to get. And
Yeah,
that's
these
the
proxy
Mamdani,
wars
and
and
that's
funding
the
these
Alexandria
foreign wars
Ocasio
got to stop.
Cortez, Elon Omar, all these people, Bernie Sanders, throw him in there. And even worse, even further to the left, that's what you're going to get unless you get your shit together here domestically. Because if you or I really can't articulate a good reason why we should be going to war against Venezuela, like a legit, other than stopping fentanyl, okay. If that's really the reason that we're going to do that, um, I don't know. I think people are going to be skeptical of it.
Yeah. Yeah, funding these foreign wars and these proxy wars that have been going on for, I mean, forever. Um, Most of us have parents and, stuff like that that fought in such wars. It's got to stop. And these intelligence lies, there's been no accountability to any of them. The confidential informants and stuff that they supposedly had in Iraq were proven to be falsehoods. It's absolutely ridiculous, and nobody has ever really been held accountable for this. And it's got to stop. Like, I'm just very skeptical when I hear we have solid intelligence and then they don't really show you anything. I understand that there's national security concerns. However, when you're bombing somebody on a boat that you claim has hundreds or thousands of pounds of whatever on it, and you don't want to disclose intelligence reports, 6, 8 months or more later, it starts to look a little bit familiar to me. I don't know about you guys, but it's very strange, and we got to stop this proxy war, false intelligence and funding all these crazy wars that make no sense overseas. I don't know how we get drug into this stuff, but I don't
It's
like
the
it.
military industrial complex,
Right,
and it's the bankers, it's the financiers on the global scale that want to maintain the supremacy of the dollar system. So I get it. I mean, they won't admit that typically. You'll have some academics and some high level discussion and policy discussions of it, but not at the real world ground level to where people
right,
like really understand it. Because there is that argument. I mean, if you look at our gross domestic product and the value of our economy, 75% of that is consumption.
right,
And we have the ability to consume, to be the world's consumers. We used to be the world's producers. We had all these manufacturing interests and things, and we made everything, and they were the best quality items the world produced. Now we have fiat currency. The dollar is the global reserve currency, and we're the world's consumers. So all these other countries make actual products, they make things, tangible goods, commodities, and we buy them with
right.
printed money that has no more worth tangibly than maybe wiping your ass with it.
Right, and it's
So
interesting to me. I don't know about you two, but when I talk to people about money and the money system globally in the United States, I'm amazed at how many people don't understand that the Federal Reserve is not an actual federal government agency. It's privately ran. Is that correct, Cody?
yeah, if you want to learn all about the Federal Reserve, uh, look up a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. It was written by a fellow by the name of Griffin. Last name was Griffin. It'll tell you all about the history surrounding the formation of the Federal Reserve, which is, as Jason said, an independent, private group of bankers and system of banks. And they run the monetary policy for the country. So a private group of bankers prints our money. So if you pull a dollar bill out of your pocket, it'll say Federal Reserve note. Was basically an IOU from the Federal Reserve. But back in the day, your notes, the IOU was you could exchange that paper currency for the equivalent value in actual hard precious metals. So when it was backed by gold, that was a thing. Or you had silver certificates. So you could exchange that paper currency dollar for a dollar in silver.
Right,
That all changed. So not only did it enable, not only did it make our currency fiat and no longer backed by anything, But when our currency was backed by precious metals, it was pegged to it. So you could see inflation in real time. So an ounce of gold had this price in US dollars. Well, when you take that away, then there's no longer a check and balance. It's no longer pegged to it. So it enables the bankers to manipulate the issuance of currency and get away with it because it's not backed, there's not a direct connection to it. And that's what we've been experiencing for the past 50 years in this country. And we're pretty much at the tail end, I think, of that um, house of cards, to be quite honest. I don't know how this is going to be sustainable into the future, other than war. When all else fails, they take you to war. And that's been the lesson throughout the history of mankind. Because we're not the first country to have, before we had the gold reserve currency, it was Britain. Before it was Britain, it was France. Before it was France, it was Spain, and so on and so forth, all the way back to Rome and Egypt and everything else. So we have to learn from our history. We have to um, put in place the policies that are sustainable. We've not been down a sustainable path for the past 50 years. And I don't want to see a situation in Ukraine escalate into World War III. I think there's a lot of people at the global level that would be more than happy to see that happen in order to protect their interests and their power. And I don't want to see that happen. It's bad enough that we've had, I don't know what the actual figures are. It's over 1 million people in Ukraine, soldiers, same figures, over 1 million in Russia. These countries are decimated. These cultures are decimated. And you look at Zelensky, and when Zelensky, who is not a Slav, he's not a native, Ukrainian in the sense that he's Slavic. Ukraine is a Slavic, Eastern Slavic nation. Zelensky is actually Jewish. Um, and he said, "Oh, after this war, Ukraine is going to be a rainbow nation." Oh, so you kill off all the Ukrainians, and then you're going to import Africans and Asians and everybody else in order to replace all the native Ukrainians that you sent to the meat grinder. That's a tragedy on grand global scale. You know, um, and I don't want to see it go beyond that. I would love to see somebody come in there, and if you can't get them to stop it, Ukraine would. If the United States would pull back from its financial support and its military weaponry support, we've had advisors, I mean, in the form of mercenaries and stuff on the ground since the beginning. So if we pulled everything back, Ukraine would come to an agreement. And
Oh yeah.
honestly, Ukraine, it was Russia. It just the name Ukraine means borderlands. That's what it
Right.
means. So it was part of the Russian Empire for generations. It's actually, when you look at Kievan Rus, is what they call it. Kievan Rus was a group of Viking conquerors that came down in the 9th century and settled in what is now Kiev,
Right.
or Kiev, as the Ukrainians like to call it. And they created basically Western Russian civilization in what is now Ukraine. So
Right.
I don't think people really understand that. They don't probably know where Ukraine is on a map. They probably couldn't pick Russia out on a map. They don't know basically they're brothers. It'd
Yeah.
be the
Right.
difference somebody in Ohio against somebody in Alabama. So can they understand each other? Yes. If you took somebody from the backwoods of Alabama, are they going to have a different accent, different dialect, different words and stuff that they use? Yeah. but they're close enough you're going to be able to
Right.
understand them because it's all an English uh, language that's being spoken. That's pretty much the equivalency of Russia fighting Ukraine.
Right.
And
And as I understand it, and I know Robert and I have talked about this, and it's kind of a taboo topic, but one of the main problems, I guess, with Mr. Putin was this what's it called? The Azov unit. He was freaking out because this supposed Nazi regime far right, unit was involved, and they were passing along borders. And I mean, not that I'm a big fan of Mr. Putin, but Russia does have some sordid history with such characters, and I would be concerned if I was him. So there is that. And Zelensky, I don't know, man. He's kind of sketchy. I don't know how you guys feel about him, but he is definitely a sketchy cat.
he's a puppet. The
Right.
man was an actor. I mean, that's what his job was. In fact, you might be able to find the clip if you search it, where he plays the
Probably.
piano with his penis. If you wanna see a good
Yeah, let's not do that.
ripping yarn. Jay, pull up the video of Vladimir
No,
Zelensky playing the piano
Oh
with his.
Lord.
no.
It's a joke. And in fact, they had on Netflix, I think back in 2022 or 2023, kind of early on when this conflict started. I forget the name of the program that he was on. It was like the number one show in Ukraine at the time, where basically he plays a character that was a teacher and then gets elected or gets appointed the president of Ukraine, and he basically saves the country. They ran that right before they installed him as the puppet dictator of Ukraine, and by they I mean the U.S. State Department under Victoria Nuland, who was behind all of that. Uh, there's so much crap. I mean, and it's not unique to Ukraine. I mean, this is basically status quo, how the military industrial complex, um, intelligence agencies in particular, have operated on the global level for ever since their creation, you know. And you
Mhm.
want to talk about historical warnings and presidents and stuff. Look at Dwight David Eisenhower. When he left office, he gave his famous speech, and I encourage anybody out there, pull it up on YouTube, listen to it yourself from the man himself about the warning: beware the military industrial complex. And
Right.
then what happened with his predecessor, John Fitzgerald Kennedy? One of the last things that he said was that he wanted to take the CIA, or the intelligence agencies,
Right.
and rip them up into a million pieces and scatter them in the four winds. Oh
Right.
well, you know. Fast forward to that day in November of 1963, and they put an end to him. So
It's funny how that
these
happens, isn't it?
it really
Not to
is.
sound like conspiracy theorists like we keep on getting called, but
Well, it's factual. You
it
want to
is.
listen to the mainstream narrative on any particular topic of discussion, and that's fine. Ignorance kind of is bliss. Burying your head in the sand while the world crumbles around you, yeah, until it results in your destruction,
Right.
then you'll probably be fat and happy. But this is the world that we live in, and it's pervasive. It goes everywhere. And if you
Well,
want to learn about it, the information is there.
Yeah.
You got to be able to
Research
digest
people.
it.
Right.
Yeah, and you got to be able to connect a few dots and that sort of thing. But I don't know, on the national level with foreign policy, again, yeah, and now we got, oh well, Iran's producing ballistic missiles. Well, we got to go knock them out again. Again, let let Netanyahu, let Israel deal with
Right.
that. If they want to, they've got the Iron Dome and they've got all this other high tech, you know, and the number one in the world as far as intelligence collection.
Yeah, Israel don't play with the intelligence. They're top notch.
Yeah. So they know, and that's why it was such a bullshit argument, when they were talking about October 20th, to say, oh well, we were caught off guard. These people came in on like little gliders,
Uh-huh.
over the wall and ravaged us. Give me a
Uh-huh.
crap, or
Right.
give me a break. They would know if a mouse is, on the walls of Jerusalem and takes a shit. They know.
Yeah, they do. They're very
You
good at what
know,
they do.
yeah. So I don't know. I just want people, the working class American and middle class Americans, somebody to look out for them for once.
Right.
You've got the Democrats that worry about all the illegals and all the people that are on welfare and just using them to give themselves more power and influence. And then you've got a lot of these establishment Republicans that look at the corporation. They both look at corporations. They're both
Right.
bought and paid for, by different companies and things like that. But then you got all the Republicans that are looking out for these corporate interests and stuff. And when it comes to regular, hardworking Americans, middle class, working class people that are not living off the system, we don't really
Yeah.
have a lot of people that are advocating for us. And that needs to change. We need people in there that are doing things on our behalf, and there would be no better policy than an America first, America only policy for
Yeah.
the regular Americans.
Well, Cody, you kind of touched on this a little bit ago, which was kind of like one of our next topics was the midterm elections, because I think everything we're talking about right now really highlights how consequential the upcoming midterms will be for our country. And one of those things is I think is the biggest topic that will affect the voters in 2026. It's hard to believe we're talking about 2026 already. I just feel like I'm in the future. I don't know about y'all, but um, I think that we were talking about earlier about the economy. I think that's going to be the number one thing that drives voter turnout in 2026. Both left and right are passionate about that with their own viewpoints. The left wants more government subsidies for the healthcare policies that they got on the marketplace. Like that's going to come into play. The right, many on the right like the tariffs. They want that to stay. And then the people that are running for Congress and in the Senate, they have to, reconcile these issues, and a lot of them just play to their base, right? I mean, let's be honest. One thing I did want to highlight, though, when you were asking earlier about how do we feel about the optimism of the country, or are we pessimistic, and so on. I remember reading recently about the Trump administration and the military are bringing back shipbuilding, because we are actually being beaten uh, pretty badly right now by China. China has just one shipyard that China has can outproduce everything that we have right now. That's just how massive that they can produce ships. Now, a lot of their ships, their naval ships are they don't have the same tonnage as what we do, so we have a lot more firepower per ship than they do. But they've surpassed us on the size of their navy. They're not far behind us on technology. Some say they rival us. The fact that you talked about how they manufacture things, they can output much better than we can. But the trend is that Trump is trying to bring all those things back because he's got countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates. I'm trying to think of some other countries off the top of my head that he's gotten to come and invest in the United States. Same thing with companies. And we're actually seeing a lot of American companies and European companies who used to have major operations in China are bringing them into Mexico because they can still get cheaper labor, but then they're closer to the United States. It's easier on shipping. I think they get deals on the imports and tariffs. And Mexico right now is actually working on building their own version of the Panama Canal. So when we was talking about these major geopolitical shifts, there's so much that we could talk about. We could be here all night, and
Right.
these are some of my favorite topics. But there's like a day of reckoning coming with the midterm, because every cycle, like it seems like when the Republicans get in, everything just swings, and then when Democrats take over, then it swings left, and then it's like there's just no real stability. And so I think that's why we see so much with the inflation and a lot of the negative impacts on our economy with families, family policies. There's people who rely on Medicaid, and then they're used to it. I'm not debating whether we need to give Medicaid or not. I'm just saying people get used to a certain Medicaid, and then the bottom just falls out. And then some of those people are very needy. So it's just like there's no predictability, there's no stability like there used to be in our country. We're not far from having instability in our country because of how divided we are. So what do you guys think about that? Because I think some of these House of Representatives, some of these senators, they have to answer to this election cycle. What's your vision? How are you going to drive good policy that's going to help us with jobs? It's going to help us with lower taxes. It's going to help us with these safety nets, all these different issues. What do you guys think about that?
Well, personally, I don't know. I'm cynical when it comes to the cultural status. I mean, cultural degradation that we've experienced in this country. Whether or not we can have a true renaissance or revitalization, given where we are culturally. And if you look historically, typically it takes some major catastrophe that is a collective experience
Right.
for a nation or a people. And then out of the ashes of that catastrophe, you have genuine change. You have something new, something different. Well, now I look at we've had 60 years, and if you want to go back further to FDR and the creation of a lot of these social welfare programs and things, FDR, the big one was Lyndon Baines Johnson in the 60s. I mean, that was the heyday and extending into the 70s under Jimmy Carter and that sort of thing. That was the heyday of what we consider the welfare state that we exist under today. Well, it destroyed so much of our culture too. I mean, it was a product of our culture in a lot of respects, but it also was a culture killer. And when you think about that, like, how are you going to get the American people who have been so degraded culturally to willingly accept change or cuts to spending or changes to
Right.
certain programs that they live off of? You know, you're going to go in there and say, you're not realizing your potential, because that's how I see it. I see it as uh, everybody alive today is the product of thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, millions of years, whatever time frame you want to look at, of evolutionary success. We're the products of the winners. Everybody, even the biggest loser piece of shit out there alive today, his ancestors made it, at least lived long enough for generation after generation to knock up some woman and to have a kid, you know? So are they realizing their potential and saying, when you're a dependent on the government, and they may claim that they're not able-bodied or able-minded to work. There's a lot of fraud in those systems. Um, but in reality, like, is that, are they maximizing their potential and their existence? How many people just sit on their asses and play video games or watch hours upon hours of television
Or harass
or
people
sit
online all day and all night. Yeah.
masturbate all day long to Pornhub or whatever the hell they do? Is that really what we were meant to do? Were we meant to just be lazy, fat pieces of crap, or were we meant for something more? And we could go down that road with a spiritual conversation as well, but just strictly on the human element and having productive work. We were meant to create, we were meant to contribute, we were meant to achieve,
Right.
we were meant to be dependents. We were not meant to look at government and say, give me a handout, so I can exist. No, you're supposed to go out there
Right.
and make a way for yourself in the world.
But where do you guys think this is going to lead us with? Do you guys think that the Republicans will remain in control of the House and Senate? Do you think it's going to go back to the Democrats? What do you guys think about that?
Jay, you can give your thoughts.
I mean, I don't really go into the national politics or look at the subjects, but I think the Republicans will hold probably. Um, we might have some upsets, but I think we have too many puppets and puppet masters that are installing politicians that aren't a part of whichever political party that they're representing, and that filters down to local politics too. We see it locally. I'm not going to throw any names out right now. If we want to talk about that tomorrow night, we will. I'm sure that Mr. Ralph Smith would love to go into that. We've had some heart-to-heart talks about that, but I think that this country is looking at a lot of masks, and the people under the masks aren't, what they voted for. And it has been that way for a long time, and it's getting worse, and we're coming to a head. And what's that head going to be? Is it going to be some sort of a second, civil war, or, some kind of revolutionary problem, or a financial catastrophe that ends the United States as we know it? I don't know, but I think we have too many career politicians, and we have too many puppets that are being run by, global puppet masters, and extremely grossly wealthy individuals that are, quite frankly, only about their bottom line and have absolutely no interest in people at all other than their own people and themselves. That's what I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would just expand on it to say the Democrat Party, if you listen to Democrat commentators and podcasters from like a real life people, they're pissed off with them. Okay. So I don't think that there is a viable long-term future for Democrat establishment politicians either. Same way on the right side of things. I think people are pissed off with that's why Trump did so well from a populist right standpoint, was that he's something different. He's not one of these, stiff collar pieces of shit establishment rhino Republican in name only Republicans. He's going to actually go in there and do what he's going to implement, a conservative nationalist agenda that's going to benefit the country and us, the people that, bleed, red, white, and blue, and work and pay taxes and are responsible and everything.
Right.
I think what you're going to get, again, anything on the left is going to be far left. So whether or not you want to say that they'll identify as democratic socialists like Mamdani, that's just one step below communism, if you're not aware of the totem pole of political ideology. And I think that that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a populist radical leftist phenomenon that's going to come, unless the policies here in the next half a year really go hardcore domestically, you know, and people see real tangible benefits to their bottom line. Now, some of the tax breaks and stuff, yeah, that's going to help people out. I think that that will be well received, but putting pressure, I will say, from a financial standpoint, putting pressure on the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, all that does is it's going to result in additional inflation,
Right.
additional monetization of the debt, which is bad. You know, um, they didn't do us any benefit with their policies when this inflation started getting out of control in 2020, 2021. They should have done what Paul Volcker did when he was under Reagan, when he was in office during that era after Jimmy Carter and the ridiculous inflation of the late 70s and early 80s. He should have raised the funds rate above the rate of inflation. And it would have really stung. It really would have sucked. But you go through short term pain for long term gain. Instead, Jerome Powell, what he did was just kind of went half cocked at it. And it didn't really solve the problem. It probably made it worse in the long run. So unless they get their situation here to where people are feeling better about affordability, standard of living, that sort of thing. Like James Carville said, it's the economy, stupid, and that is what it is. Much as I can't stand that man, that's what it comes down to. So we'll see what happens, with that here in the next quarter, 2 quarters. But they're running out of time,
Right.
and you know, I don't want to see a bunch of communists or radical leftists and stuff take over things because we can't afford it. You want to talk about not being able to afford something? This country cannot afford policies like that
Right.
or an expansion of them. It's just it will be the final nail in the coffin of this country.
Right. I agree with that. So we're getting kind of tight here on time. What do you guys think about these three?
Lando,
So I know little about Heather and Casey, obviously, because they're the less known candidates. Vivek obviously is. I think he's becoming a little bit more controversial, unfortunately. I think well, and the other one we don't have up here is Jim Tressel. Isn't he running for governor?
I
he's
think so.
not.
I just
Did he
pulled
back
up.
out, Cody?
Last I heard, he was not running
Interesting. Okay, I
unless
thought.
he changed his tune. But
Yeah, I don't think so. I just pulled up the post from our partners over at the Swamp Fox, and they have a thing on their page here. It's got all three campaign pages, and I just wanted to get
Gotcha.
your guys' take on these three.
yeah,
So
Casey Push just threw his hat in the ring. He's a investor, car guy, lives up in Perrysburg, outside a suburb of Toledo. YouTuber, graduate of Ohio State. Um, he's got a pretty thorough platform listed on his website. You can listen to his videos that he's done since he's launched his campaign. Seems like a solid America First conservative, somebody definitely to look into and to consider. Heather Hill's from Southern Ohio. She's been in the race here for quite a while. Um, Seems like a very articulate, intelligent woman. Definitely somebody that you should look into. Most people, the Republicans, the GOP, uh, state GOP has endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy even before primary or anything like that. Kind of unprecedented action. Now, you can criticize that move on behalf of the Ohio GOP for doing so early on. Why would they do that? It's never been done before in recent times. Well, Vivek, to his credit, he kind of played the part. So he got Trump's endorsement for governor uh, at an early date, and then he just kind of ran with it and went around the state and said, I'm Trump's endorsed candidate for governor." And he kind of put pressure on the state officials, the GOP, to kind of view him the same way Trump did. And Trump was just new in office here for his second term. And I think that is why they kind of did that. Um, Now, Vivek, he's a billionaire, pharmaceutical. Some people criticize some of his handlings of his pharmaceutical investments and the companies and stuff that he worked with. Um, Others think that he's a dynamo. He's a good speaker. I'll give him that. Now he's kind of put his foot in his mouth with his desire for a significant expansion of H-1B visas. So H-1B visas are basically you're bringing in a bunch of foreign workers to come into the country, and you give them legal status
Yeah.
in order to work for a period of time or what have you. And he's even made offensive statements saying that Americans, we want the best people in the world, and Americans are not the best people in the world. Well, coming from somebody, yeah, he was born here, but his parents weren't. So he's first generation, and insulting, the American people in that way. Same thing. He's made comments here at TPUSA had their big function that was very well attended, features a lot of speakers, including Vivek Ramaswamy. And he kind of shit all over the notion of the American people having, being a nation, having, heritage Americans are no better than somebody that you just ship in here from, Haiti, and you hand them a green card or what have you. And to Vivek, they're just as American as you or I.
Right.
And that's offensive to me. I don't get offended by a whole hell of a lot, but you know, my family has been here since the Mayflower, and to say that you American people who came over as pioneers and carved a country out of the wilderness, something that literally, yeah, there were Indians here, there were Native Americans here, but there were no cities, there were no roads, there were no permanent structures, there were
Right.
no bridges, there were no dams, there were no schools, there was nothing. It was literally wilderness. And they carved one of the greatest nations the world has ever known out of essentially nothing. So to say that shared heritage, and we're all descendants, you know, of mainly the British Isles, and then you put in some French and German, Northwestern Europe, that sort of thing. And then you had a relatively, it's about 10% of the colonial population was uh, sub-Saharan African. That's America.
Right.
Okay, so we have a unique culture. We are a unique people with shared history, shared values, and shared experiences. And to discount that rich history um, is kind of bullshit. What do you think, Landon?
Yeah, I mean, I think he really put his foot in his mouth on that comment. I think Vivek has a lot of great potential. Uh, he's very smart. I mean, you don't build a company the way he did without knowing something. Um, he's already made his way into the federal government and the Trump administration, although for a short period of time. Uh, I think he's a likable guy. He's like he's charismatic. Like he's a good speaker. But can he be substantive when he gets in office? And that's the kicker, right? I mean, everybody talks a good game on the campaign trail, but do they follow through? And that's what we don't know yet. I mean, until he gets in, I think he's still going to get in. I think he's still, based on the polls I've seen, that he's still, far and ahead above everybody else. I agree with you. I think very little from what I've seen about Heather Hill and the Casey guy. They both seem like decent people, and hats off to them to throw their hat in the ring for a governor's race. I mean, that's no small feat. But I think Vivek's going to come away with it. It would be wise for him to pivot from that stance. Hey, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said it. I've since learned that we have amazing people here. That's not really my intent, was to minimize that we don't have good people here, more whatever. I just want to bring in even more talent. He could pivot from that, from as Jay would say, a tactical standpoint. I don't think he's going to. I think he even took some heat from Elon Musk, didn't he? I think Elon Musk even made an X post about that when he first said that. So that was interesting. But I think you're going to see Vivek get in. It's just a matter of whether he sticks to what he says he's going to do. He says a lot of the right things. He says he's pro-family. He's I think he's Buddhist, so he will come from a different faith group. I don't think we've seen that.
He's Hindu, I
or
think.
Hindu. Okay. So I'm just.
You've got for religion, just sorry to interrupt, but you
Yeah.
got Ramaswamy, who's a Hindu. You've got Heather Hill, I think she's Baptist. Not sure about Casey Putsch, probably Lutheran or something like that if he's got a German last name. It could be a number of, maybe
Mhm.
Catholic.
Yeah.
And then you've got Amy Acton, who's Jewish. So we're covering all bases from a religious standpoint, I
Listen,
think.
I'm a little concerned with how many people I'm coming across that are Jewish and Democrat. I don't know what's going on with that whole thing, but it just seems like more and more of the Jewish community is Democratic.
Well, they vote like 80%,
What's that?
consistent. They vote if you're a Jewish, and Judaism is the religion.
Yeah,
Jewishness is actually, an ethnicity or
yeah,
a racial group. So you can
yeah.
actually do a DNA test and it'll say whether or not if you have Jewish DNA.
Hmm.
Well, you can't test somebody's DNA and find out that Robert Landon's a Pentecostal or,
Yeah,
I'm a Methodist or whatever.
yeah.
So, as a group, though, if you look at demographics of voting, yeah, they're consistently,
Hmm.
the Jewish population in the United States is like 80%
Yeah,
voting Democrat.
yeah.
And, there's a lot of different groups that kind of vote monolithically like that.
Yeah, it was very surprising. You're right. And learning some of their, how they even have different, like the reform group, the conservative group. There's like another one. I've done a little bit of research on that, just because that can be pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, just the way Vivek has the name recognition, we know how that works. He's going to get in, barring any, scandal or something like that. He's going to get in. Hopefully he will. Hopefully he will stick to what he said on the campaign trail, because there's a lot of things I've heard him say that I do like. He says he's pro family. He's pro school choice. I'm pro school choice. No offense to public schools. Public schools can be valuable, but it's not right for every family. And so I like that. So it's going to be interesting to see, because it's also coinciding with the midterms, and that's going to drive voter turnout even more. I think we're going to see a big turnout of voters next year. I really do, because people are passionate on both sides of the aisle, and I get it. I'm pro Trump. Never been afraid to admit that. Also, we'll critique him where I believe it's necessary. And one of the main things for me is like, let's get these groceries under control. Like, where is 46-cent eggs at? I mean, come on, like this used to be the thing that you could buy if you just want a cheap meal. You could go buy some eggs and have some toast and some
Killed
bacon.
off all the chickens.
I'm
You
telling
know,
you, that was
that's
Biden. That
literally
was
they massacred millions of chickens.
yeah, that
There's
was the
this
Biden
avian
administration.
flu. We got to be worried about. There's always some bird flu or some bullshit that they throw out there. Then they
Yeah,
go and
Right.
slaughter millions of chickens.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
my
and then
wife
if
and
you
I,
talk about it, you're a conspiracy theorist.
right. My wife and I was just talking about the other day how I remember back in 2019, like Trump's first term, and buying a carton of eggs for like 46 cents. And then, up until I mean it's coming down, but like I remember it being not long ago, what, like five, almost $6 for a carton of eggs. Like that's just insane. um, there's no reason why our groceries should be this high. Healthcare, that's a whole nother animal. Nobody has a solution for that right now. That's a mess. Um, and then that's a huge issue for the left, more so than it is for the right, I believe, because a lot of them are very pro on the subsidies and the marketplace plans with Obamacare and so on. So that's going to be a big topic on the campaign trail next year. Grocery prices, gas has stabilized. I think. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but I'm not, really upset with the gas prices right now. So if gas prices stay low, he's bringing in tariff revenue. Oh, this is the other thing I wanted to mention this earlier. When we got on some other topics when we was talking about Venezuela. He has President Trump. I think it's his Treasury Secretary that announces we had 2 or 3 months of surplus income. Now, this is just, we've brought in more money than we spent for a few months. So it's not like, hey, we're bringing down the deficit, which is a big issue for those of us, Cody. You mentioned that earlier. I'm obviously a deficit hawk. I definitely think we need to get the deficit down, bring down our national debt. But the fact that we're seeing some months where we're having surplus income is a positive. One thing I will critique Trump again, and I'll leave it to you guys to wrap up here, is I do like the fact that we're potentially going to get these tariff checks next year. But the way Trump is, it's politics, right? He's going to do it probably late summer because he wants it to be fresh in voters' minds because he's going to try to help Republicans in the midterms. So, we'll see how well that plays on the votes.
Yeah, I mean it sounds good, the tariff dividend, but just like when they were giving the COVID stimulus payments, those are all inflationary.
Right.
Okay. So you're going to be injecting additional money into the market and then people are going to spend it, which, yeah, it's going to be, there's going to be stimulation with that.
Yeah.
But that money, which again is not based on anything, it's fiat,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be used to purchase the same goods. So you're going to have all these people with money that are going to go out there and they're going to try to buy the same items with it because there's only a finite amount of stuff in
Mm-hmm.
existence,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
tangible
Right.
stuff. So what's that going to do to the prices of those tangible goods?
What I
Going to
would like
go
to see,
up.
that's a
You're going to have
good
more
point.
inflation.
That's a good point. What I would like to see, maybe we can do this on one of our next national topic shows, is what was the inflation rate since Trump's come in the second term compared to Biden? Because we know under Biden, that's where most of this inflation came from. Probably 90%. I mean, I remember during that period, like just it was like every time we went to grocery store, it's like, man, like how can prices just continually go up like this? And some of the last figures I had seen, either at the end of Biden or beginning of Trump's second term, was that the average family of four was paying about $8,000 more a year in groceries and gas and things like that, like their cost because of inflation. So which makes sense because, like to your point, these tariff dollars or inflationary dollars coming back to families. So for me, for a family of four, now that my oldest is 18, I will get $2,000 per person in the household, right? Because I believe they said they would even give it to kids. So my family would be looking at an $8,000 check from for tariff revenues. That makes up what we lost in inflationary spending. But again, I would like to see some of those figures since Trump's come in, how much it's gone up since then.
Yeah, it's all stuff. You can go on the Federal Reserve. It's called Fred. The St. Louis Federal Reserve, I think, is the one that does all their publishing of charts and graphs. You can search all kind of data. You can search different commodities. You want to see what the price of a pound of ground beef has done historically. If you want to see any item, if you want to. So when I do my research on the economy, that's my go-to is the Federal Reserve site and their charting of things. But the thing people have to realize is with the consumer price index or inflation in different commodities or whatever you want to, whatever metrics you want to look at, we saw unprecedented increases in costs of goods from 2020 to 2024. Now, it literally goes like this when you're looking at that. It's like here, a steady increase and then a huge spike.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts tapering under at the very end of Biden and heading into Trump. It's still increasing. We don't see that spike in a lot of these goods and stuff. But that, so you can say, oh well, the price increase is down. Well, the price increase is down, but is the price itself back to what it was before it took this huge effing spike?
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, on a lot of things, it's not.
Yeah.
So they have to work on getting it back in order. But the problem is, the major issue is debt. The major issue is spending and the monetization of the debt that has been ongoing since 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's like with the big beautiful bill or any of these other things that they print and spend. You have to show a core if you're going to spend more. What do you got to do if your household budget? You're like, I'm going to spend more on this. You have to either make more money, increase revenues to cover that additional spending, or you have to decrease spending to offset that increase in whatever you did over here. That's where our government across the board, it's the federal government, it's the state government, it's the county government,
Mm-hmm.
city government, whatever the hell government entity you want to do, they're all irresponsible.
Yeah.
They're all not getting their fiscal houses in order, or if they do so at the threat of something.
Yeah.
So that's my problem with any of those spending bills that we've seen. Like, it's fine. Same thing with tariff dividend. You want to do that, then let's see a corresponding cut somewhere else to offset
Mhm.
the stimulative nature of the issuance of those tariff dividends.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what needs to be done. And they have to tackle the national debt and just get spending under control. I'm not saying that I'm advocating for huge increases in taxes, because as we've seen historically, most federal income taxes, state income taxes, municipal income taxes, they've been counterproductive. They have actually hampered prosperity, wealth and prosperity and investment. They've been destructive. So I'd love nothing more than to get rid of income taxes across the board. And I think that we would be all the better for it. Same thing with property taxes. Shout out to all my friends over at Axe the Tax, because I think talk about next year, I think that there's a definite possibility that that bad boy is going to get on the ballot. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are fed up with it. You got
Oh
the
yeah.
mainly Republican politicians in the state house that are scrambling to try to put something together. And strangely enough, like I posted an article or a comment about a suggestion on one thing they could do at the state level to help with these property taxes is to increase the threshold for the passage of a property tax levy initiative from a simple majority to 60%. I said, that makes sense. It should be a high threshold. You should not be able to vote to burden your fellow man who happens to be a property tax owner with additional taxes, taking more money out of his pocket, his hard earned money out of his pocket,
Yeah.
unless there's a whole bunch of support for it. It should not be a simple majority. It should not be 50% plus one. That is freaking asinine, especially when you're talking about a lot of these people that vote, they're not subject to the tax themselves. They
Right.
rent, they don't own shit. But yeah, by God, they'll vote on you. Robert Landon, you should pay more. You should pay your fair share. I shouldn't have to, but by God, you should have to. And that's their mentality. And that is immoral. So if you're going to do that immoral crap with the system that we have, then at least make the threshold a little bit higher. So I posted that. And by God, State Rep David Thomas, who authored most of the recent bills that were passed and signed into law by Governor Mike DeWine, reforming some of the property tax policies, he actually said, he responded to me and said, I actually have a bill that I sponsored or co sponsored uh, that's in committee right now that would do just that, that would raise the threshold to pass a property tax levy initiative from a simple majority to 60%. So it's House Bill 355. So I'm going to encourage everybody out there to contact your state representative. So Tracy Richardson, if you're in the Marion area, Marion Township, Pleasant Township, whatnot, Union County, contact her, say, if this comes up for a vote, you vote in favor of it. If you're over in Moore County area, Wyandotte, I think all the way over Rorden, McLean, contact his ass and say, support this. Because it needs to be done. No matter what happens with the constitutional ballot initiative to abolish taxes, if we get nothing else but we raise that threshold from a simple majority to 60%, that's a huge win. That's a huge win.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I see that it's a little bit past 9 o'clock here on this New Year's Eve. Everybody's probably gearing up to go out and party like it's 1999. Wait a minute. That was a long time ago. It's going to be 2026. Good
2026.
Lord. We're getting old, boys.
I know,
I'm
right?
telling you.
No, I know. I won't even stay up. I used to, watch the ball, all that kind of stuff. Kiss your sweetheart as the clock strikes midnight. Now it's like, it's 10 o'clock. I'm
I'm
getting
going
my
to bed.
old ass to bed.
Yeah, we'll probably still be online tomorrow talking at 10 o'clock maybe. So I'll give us
Hey,
something to do. Maybe I'll
it's
make
New
it to
Year's,
midnight this
something to
year.
do. So, what better way for you out in the listening audience to pass the new year